Well, good morning, Arief, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize, I look a bit stunned. The lights are in my eyes. I appreciate all of you taking the time to come with us to the second Singapore Dialogue on Sustainable World Resources. But especially, I think, Pak Arief, thank you for taking the time to come from Jakarta. I just spent the last week in Jakarta and I realized how much is going on there. There is so much sense of a focus and a need to give attention to Indonesia's issues that is difficult for any of the key office holders to leave the country. So I thank everyone for coming, but particularly our guests from Indonesia. And I should also thank our sponsors and supporters who are named there on the plaque. When we started the SWR, or Sustainable World Resources Dialogue, we were very aware that sustainability, which is a key issue for us at the Singapore Institute of International Affairs, is relatively a new issue for a lot of the businesses, and particularly in the resource sector. The resource sector, of course, in the world and particularly in our region, is quite fundamentally and perennially important, a key driver both of the economic top numbers, but really down to the ground, providing jobs at the local level, whether for the plantations or for the traders or the community around them. And so we, in many ways, were trying to figure out how to talk about sustainability from Singapore in a way that mattered to the region, to the businesses, of course, based here, dealing with the region, but also more directly to the communities and corporations in the countries around us. And so we've been trying to grow, and this is our second year, the SWR as a platform for really a multi-stakeholder engagement between the governments, between the corporations, and with the communities and the non-government organizations that sometimes represent them. This year, we meet at a time where the markets are in a general downturn, globally, in almost across all sectors, and especially, of course, also on the resource prices. With the slower growth we see ahead, there will be many challenges for businesses. And there are concerns, frankly, that while this remains a vital sector, the sustainability question might become downgraded in these harder economic times. And yet, on the other hand, another clear trend is that in terms of the environment, such as climate change and the recurring problem of the haze, or clean city air, these are increasing demands from citizens. Also, communities and citizens demand much more in terms of equity, of how the value chain rewards those who actually are closest to production, and, of course, the creation of jobs. And these issues of equity and creation of jobs are across our region, especially with Indonesia, but also here in Singapore. Last year when we met, the haze had been bad for the last 2 years. And the sectors were relatively, slightly better. This year, thankfully, the haze has been less bad so far. But we are entering a dry season, and there's also been a northern haze affecting Thailand. So in this sense, I'm very glad we meet also that the attention remains on the key issues of the environment, sustainability, as well as the resource and business. In the year that has passed since the first SWR in this year, a law has been passed by the Singapore government to particularly address the transboundary haze pollution. This was discussed last year by our minister, who will also be attending this year. When it was raised then, the minister made it clear this was not a magic bullet, not a one approach, but rather a tool together with efforts to increase cooperation in ASEAN with our neighbors. The minister will be here today, and I hope that this emphasis on cooperation will continue, because engaging the new Jokowi administration is a key for all of us in our region. And from afar, we've noticed some positive signs. The merger of the Ministries of Environment and Forestry, I think, is an important step, and we are very honored to have the Deputy Minister with us from the ministry today. When we look also at the industry itself, we see signs of change. More of the larger and leading companies among us here today recognize and are responding more strongly to the sustainability challenge as a business issue, not merely as public relations, and whether or not they are the producers of resources or the buyers or their final consumers. Now, if I may say, while I know most of you are from industry, that we don't regard you as angels, I'm afraid. Clearly, like all businesses, you are there to turn a profit. But I think increasingly this change of attitude is not from preaching of a moral type, but a recognition that in terms of the bottom line, this is starting to matter. And here, we recognize that there's a growing engagement with the key leading companies and also the financial institutions. This is a particular strength for us here in Singapore, that from Singapore, so many global banks, so many Singapore banks operate out into the region, as do so many global traders and commodity buyers. And the SWR, the Sustainable World Resources Dialogue, tries to create a key platform for the financial sector and the resource sector to really discuss issues in total. In this sense, we wish to support positive change. There will, in the course of today, be panels and panelists who may be controversial, who you may have read or the papers, etc., have been criticized, or some of the NGOs here today with us will criticize openly. Such controversy is good, I think, to recognize that there are remaining challenges, and that not being angels, we need to be held accountable to stakeholders. But also we hope that the SWR will be a platform for these companies that are trying to be moving in the right direction to announce commitments and the next step forward. And in this light, while this is only the second SWR, second year of our dialogue, I'm happy to announce a number of things that will be launched in conjunction with the SWR or with just recently. The first is the Haze Tracker. This is an independent website and portal created by the SWI think tank. Without an authoritative set of maps available to the public, this portal will allow concerned citizens easy access to haze-related studies, analysis, air quality, and map data, and will be a reference point, I hope, when people are concerned about who are the fire starters. The second item to be launched is by a globally famous non-government organization, the WWF. This report on sustainable financing reviews some 30 financial institutions in Malaysia, Singapore, and of course, Singapore, and looks at how likely and willing these banks and financial institutions are to really include environment and also social concerns for loans and the investments they make. I understand the report is at the moment quite bleak, but that's important to recognize the low base we start from and to build from there. The third that we are launching today is even more academic. This is a book by a Professor Dr. Helena Vaki, a senior lecturer at the University of Malaya, who has really been a regular here to discuss the problems that face sustainability and the haze. And the book will be launched later today. The fourth is from the corporate sector, and this is Unilever, whose sustainability report number 15 has been updated for a sustainable living plan and its partnerships with really global movements. I think David Q from Unilever will be here on one of our panels, and of course you can quiz him more about it later. So far it has been my think tank, an NGO, academic, a corporation. I think the next two events will be two sort of announcements using this platform will be quite interesting. One is that in the last panel today, we'll host the Singapore Exchange and its chief regulator, Ms. Sim. And as you know, last October, the Singapore Exchange announced plans to move from a voluntary to mandatory sustainable reporting for all listed companies. And today, she will share how the SGX plans to require listed companies to comply with sustainable reporting, or else to explain why they are not doing so. The details she will hopefully share with us. And again, you have a chance to ask her, what's the thinking in SGX in moving in this direction? So that's the viewpoint of the regulator or the listing company. And last, of course, and a way to introduce our keynote speaker, Pak Arief, is about the Indonesian government. I mentioned how Pak Jokowi the president has taken this issue of resources as a really strategic view about the country's future. I also mentioned how the Ministry of Environment has been strengthened by its merger with the Ministry of Forestry. Very live in the next few days, we will hear one signal, signal, marker, whether this government will renew and extend a moratorium it has held. As we know, there are two moratoriums, at least one for peatland and the other for forests in conjunction with the REDD, which will also be discussed with the Norwegian ambassador who's here with us today. And I think this is a very important matter, not only for Indonesia, not only for the region, but also for the planet in terms of the climate change impacts. So there are 5 definite and 2 hoped-for scenarios or announcements that hopefully will come up. But I want to again close by thanking you all. We created the SWR as a platform for exchange and discussion. I'm not sure whether you've been told about the app, a mobile app we've created that allows you not only to talk to the panelists and find them, but also to more easily network and meet with other industry players or NGOs or financial institutions which are here today. We're very pleased that in the crowd, we have not only corporations which are producing and buying, but we also have the banks, we have a number of government agencies, and really in this sense, this points to a confluence of different stakeholders that have to address these issues. In discussing these issues, there will be, I hope, points of agreement. There will also inevitably be points of contention. In dealing with resources, let's hope we'll be, pardon the pun, resourceful. And if issues relate to the fires and haze, I hope, pardon the pun, we won't be too heated. But we will instead have a chance to talk about some of the better and best practices and really, last pun, clear the air. So challenge ourselves, all of us, to do better. So thank you for sharing the time with us. Thank you for coming to Singapore or taking time off from your office to be here today. May I turn the podium over to the MC to introduce our keynote speaker, Pak Arief. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Tay, for that very punchy address. We'd now like to start today with our keynote address entitled Economic Growth and Environmental Protection, a Balancing Act. To address us, we are very privileged to have with us Deputy Minister for Environment, Degradation, Control and Climate Change, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Indonesia. Please join me to welcome our guest of honor, Mr. Arief Yuwono.
Good morning, Chief Executive Officer, National Environment Agency, Singapore, Mr. Ronnie Tay, Chairman of Singapore Institute of International Affairs, my friend, my colleagues, Pak Agus Purnomo, Pak Stik Traffic, Norwegian ambassador to Indonesia, Datuk Darrell Weber from RSPO, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to extend my warm welcome to all distinguished participants from various institutions at the second Singapore Dialogue on Sustainable World Resources. I would like also to take this opportunity to convey my appreciation to the organizing committee to the excellent arrangement to the dialogues. In this important event, I would like to call for your attention on the needs to make balance between economical development with social issues and environment. Indonesia Economic Quarterly Report published by the World Bank in December 2014 reported that Indonesia's economic growth lower than the prediction. It is also reported that the main growths are driven by private consumption together with higher government spending, compensated for the drop in the contribution of the fixed investment and net export year by year. However, Indonesia is projected to continue to grow at a moderate pace in 2015. The slow growth is also reflected by the value of exports, which is lower than imports. A part of Indonesia's effort to boost the main driver of economic growth, government of Indonesia continues to develop strategy and innovation on how to increase export, especially export of goods and commodities that contain high local parts. However, the value of exported commodities is still mainly dominated by the natural resources-based industry, which is around 60% of the total export. The biggest share value of export commodities are from mineral, fuels, lubricants, and related material, and then followed by animal and vegetable oils and fats. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Article 33 of the Constitution of the Republic of Indonesia states that all natural resources are owned by state and it will be managed for the welfare of all Indonesian people. This article also states that the principle of development that should be maintained is the balance between environmental consideration and economic gain with social welfare as the main objective. It means that the center of development is the sustainability of the environment to support social and human welfare. As an actor and the end of target of development, we must use synergized approach between social, economic, and environmental principles. Protecting the environment is very crucial because the damage of environmental qualities will affect to negative impacts on the sustainability economic development itself. The principle of sustainable development is reflected in the vision and mission of President Jokowi administration for the next 5 years, namely toward Indonesia sovereignty and self-fulfillment based on solidarity action. The vision will be achieved through implementation of what we call it Nawacita, or 9 priority agenda. One of the agenda is to create action in order to achieve economic independence by moving the strategic sectors to domestic economy. The action that will be undertaken are land rehabilitation, moratorium of permits, or productive land use conversion, energy self-fulfillment, and development of new energy alternative. The agenda to achieve economic independence by moving strategic sector to domestic economy will be carried out by assuring the operationalization of program and activity to provide public with environmental quality. The outcome is to protect environmental quality while in the same time to manage environmental carrying capacity and environmental services in order to promote sustainable development. This can be done by controlling pollution, watershed management, protect biodiversity, as well as climate change mitigation and adaptation. The vision and mission of the government of Indonesia also elaborated in more detail in Presidential Regulation Number 2, year 2015, regarding the National Medium-Term Development Plan. The content of this plan includes national development strategy, general policy, sectoral programs, and also macroeconomic policy, as well as indicative budget allocation of program and activities. Ministry of Environment and Forestry is committed to achieve and provide Indonesian public with good quality and safe environment. This can be achieved by guaranteeing sustainability of resources for the benefit of human welfare and toward the implementation of sustainable development. To pursue the commitment, the Ministry of implement three main activities. First, to protect and conserve environmental quality and function in order to assure its carrying capacity of watersheds, reduce biodiversity loss and climate change mitigation and adaptation. The Environmental Quality Index can be used as an indicator. To protect and conserve of forests as a life support system, habitat of many types of flora and fauna, as well as the endangered species. The increase of contribution from forest services can be used as an indicator of achievement and will be measured by comparing national PDB to previous year. To ensure the ecosystem of sustainability of natural resources in a balanced condition, aim to support and protect human life, watershed, water resources, sustain physical and carrying capacity, and environmental services. And accomplishment of this action will be reflected by increasing of indicator of environmental qualities. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Government of Indonesia is aware that at present development growth heavily depends on natural resources such as mineral, oil and gas. However, these natural resources will not last forever. Scientists predicted that Indonesia fossil fuel stock will only last for 12 years. On the other hand, investment in plantation industry is still promising from economic point of view because of high market demand. This kind of investment will also absorb many laborers. That's quite important as well, considering Indonesia unemployment rate is quite high, more than 11%. Type of plantation industry are quite diverse, such as palm oil plantation, pulp and paper industry. Pulp oil plantation has growing quite rapidly. That also affect to high demand on land areas. In 2009, the land planted by palm oil plantation was around 4.8 million hectares, and it was increased in 2013 to be 6.1 million hectares. Based on data information that we have, world CPO consumption is around 58.3 million tons, and Indonesia's CPO product is around 17 million tons. Indeed, there's still big market opportunity on palm oil products. Palm oil products may also compete to corn oil and sunflower oil because palm oil has many derivative products. Increasing of land required for palm oil plantation will impact to the environment in accordance to spatial planning regulation. 30% of the area land ecosystem to be conserved. Peatland degradation and the use of fire for land clearing area become another pressure for environment. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, pursuing economic development for the sake of all Indonesian people is a must and avoidable. However, protecting the environment to ensure its function and sustain its services is also crucial effort. Effort in place are establishment of law enforcement and also operationalization strategy at the targeted location. Government of Indonesia has issued several laws and regulations in relation to forestry. Law number 41, year 1919. Plantation law number 18, year 2004. Disaster management law number 24, year 2007. Spatial planning law number 26, year 2008. And environmental law number 32, year 2009. Laws and regulations are legal basis for activities to be planned, implemented, monitored, and evaluated in Indonesia jurisdiction area. The approach of those laws adopts more part of prevention approach rather than countermeasures. In the area of peatland degradation control, Government of Indonesia already imposed Presidential Instruction number 10, year 2011 on moratorium of new license for utilization of primary forests and peatland. The instruction then continued by enactment of Presidential Instruction number 6, year 2013 on May 2013 that extend the moratorium duration. The final intention of the instruction is to correct and strengthen efforts of forest management with good transparent and innovation principle. Moratorium also indicates the need to develop one map reference to manage permits issued for activities that have similar or sharing areas or concession. The same principle of the policy also adopted in Government Regulation number 71, year 2014, enacted 15 September 2014 regarding peatland protection and management. The regulation also contains criteria to be used whether peatland in certain area can be conserved, must be conserved, or can be utilized. Range of threshold determined of peatland, degradation and development of peatland hydrological unit map. Strategy to increase capacity in the targeted location also implemented as a complementary action of the enforcement of law and regulation. Ministry of Environment and Forestry has identified disaster and fires caused by human activities, prone areas down to sub-regency level. The strategy is to strengthen the ability to mobilize resources within the framework of disaster control aside, and at a certain level, it is declared as a disaster. The disaster control agency will act as incident commander. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is important to understand and to be operationalized that development has twin sides of approach which cannot be left one of them, economic and environmental consideration. It is imperative for all stakeholders to bear in mind that activities conducted must have those considerations. Finally, I wish all guests and participants every success in your work and good health during the dialogue. And I wish the second Singapore Dialogue on Sustainable World Resources a complete success. Thank you very much for your attention.
I think the first question, Arief, is something that you very significantly mentioned. The new administration has merged the Environment Ministry with the Forestry Ministry. And I recall, as I said to you just now, in the past also, there was an earlier merger between the State Ministry and the part with Rahmat in those days, with Bapedal. How do you feel that these changes, have they helped, are they in the right direction to help Indonesian government as a whole manage resources and develop the sector further?
Okay, well, that is about restructuring organization between Ministry of Forestry and Ministry of Environment. Actually, it's not only to institution, but also involved to other institutions. Red Plus Agency and also National Council on Climate Change. This is we have Pak Agus Purnomo here, used to be a gentleman, very important person in the NPI. Actually, the first step it is not easy actually, because it is not only talking about technical things, but also talking non-technical things. How to merge means that merging between also people to people, not only program to program, but people to people. But now I think we have some idea that also we have a commitment how to proceed with that process. So with the new structure that we have around 9 Directorate General, and also 2 that is, we call it, institution, operational. And the most important thing is that one DG is DG for climate change control. In the climate change control DG, we have 5 echelon 2 and 1 executive director of Directorate General. But and forest fire issue is already under the DG of climate change control. Meaning that we know exactly when we trying to reduce greenhouse gas emission, then we select that forestry and peatland is the biggest percentage that we can have, and we can have, and then if we have a right place that is under the climate change DG, I believe that in the future we can have something that really valuable.
Thank you, Pak Arief. Question, I can't see anybody. Yes, a hand over here, standing up and waving very enthusiastically. Microphone, please.
Yeah, hi Simon, this is Peng Hua, Ang Peng Hua. I'm from a local university, but for the purpose of this meeting, I'm with a Facebook group, yes, it's Facebook, called the Haze Elimination Action Team. Deliberately chosen superhero kind of title. Pak Yuwono, I really appreciate you coming here. Your schedule and things happening in Indonesia. We've seen the haze come many times. I've spoken to some of the leaders in Riau, the mayor of Riau when he came, because that part seemed to be less affected by the burning. But he seemed unwilling to talk about trying to do something even slightly beyond his city's jurisdiction. Given what you have now, where you seem to be in a little bit of an economic slowdown, what has changed so that people are less incentivized to burn, to clear land by burning, haze, the increased haze? What has changed in terms of the willingness to prosecute? What has changed in terms of enforcement of the rules on the ground? What has changed in terms of the structure, the power structure we have in Indonesia? I know it's very complex. I really appreciate that part of it. But I think you also appreciate that I'm trying to understand what is new this time round that will reduce the haze going forward.
Thank you, Peng Hua. There's also a question right at the back there. So we'll go right to the back. That's
Gurmeet Singh
from Malaysia.
From Malaysia, the Center for Environment, Technology and Development, Malaysia. My question is quite similar to the previous one, but I'm more interested in the macro policy. You hold almost the same portfolio you held under the previous president. My question is, what really is different now with the new president? Because most of us are very puzzled. It's a continuation of the same old thing. Same old stories we'll be getting out of Indonesia. Is there anything new and hopeful?
Thank you. So, Pak Arief, we're very, I guess, interested in the change. As I said, from last year to this year, the major development is the change of the presidency and the ministries, the ministers. Would you give us your view about how the changes are? I mean, to be fair to the government, it's only been 6 months.
Okay, the first question is that, if not I'm mistaken, that what the new strategy to combat forest fires. We have to see forest fires is not only in the legal or law enforcement, but we want to see over the whole system that we have. And we try to focus on not only law enforcement, but also preventive measures. When we have a preventive measure on the grounds, I believe that this is we will have many benefits. At least we can avoid the loss of biodiversity. we also can avoid what happened on the grounds actually. And the preventive measure can be also applied by anybody. So I think that is the difference between now and before, because we want to see the forest fires is not only the business of the government or private sector or NGO, but also for the whole people really that is especially close to the area. And the second question is, what is the difference between the government and before? I just want to give your example in my ministry. When we have an issue, that issue is climate change. Actually, we have a lot of agency dealing with the climate change issue. But now we try to have one leadership, and then I believe that in one leadership, even we just call it not ignore the other, not ignore the previous one. We just say this is our big house. But we believe that in terms of the result, in terms of the in terms of the action, we will have a significant results. And also, I think when we merge Ministry of Environment and also Forestry, the things that we can have is that previously Ministry of Environment is just dealing with policy formulation and also coordination. And then Ministry of Forestry dealing with the operational on the ground. And now with the combination, two ministries, I believe that we have complete, horizontally and also vertically, we have something that we can operational, we can use to combat the forest fire or anything that we have.
The next question, if I may, perhaps the last question part, is the impact of the low prices. With the low prices the way they are, how do you think companies, especially I guess the smaller and medium Indonesian companies, how will they respond to the question of sustainability? And would the Indonesian government subsidize or incentivize these efforts to be more sustainable?
Basically, the concept is that, of course, we have to work together. The big one, also the small one, become one corporation. That's why I think we see that we don't have any difference, even the difference in level of asset. But I believe that whether either that is a small industry or the big industry, I think we have to come up with cooperation each other. That's why what we don't want to have a situation that they compete each other.
I think there's just time for one last short question with 37 seconds left. Anybody? Yes, there's a hand there. Please go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Faisal Parish from the Global Environment Center from Malaysia. Pak Arief, I'd just like to ask you on the progress on two specific things. You mentioned about the moratorium, which is expiring this month. So what is the future of that, of the moratorium? Secondly, you mentioned the new peatland regulations from September last year. So how are those being implemented and what is the timetable for that? Thank you.
Thank you, Faisal.
Okay. The moratorium might be extended because the day is the date of for the extent at the end of the moratorium. We're working on that final draft, and we hope that it will be issued very soon. When we have an evaluation on the implementation moratorium, we have, of course, many issues that should be discussed, that should be addressed in the next period of moratorium. One thing that's also very important is of law enforcement, and also about one map reference because we have to finalize one map preference not only in the macro scale, but also in the operational scale. Then we can use as a basis for the management on the ground. And beside the law enforcement, we also want to focus on how to connect between the moratorium and also other what is law and regulation. Because some people always think that the moratorium is only like in the silo, but the real one is that is only something we put on the landscape. Then I believe that we can have a connection each other. Once we have a connection each other, I believe that we can have stronger action to improve our forestry management.
Thank you, Pak Arief. Really, in responding to this question, you've told us not only is it the government's intention or work towards renewing the moratorium, you're telling us that it connects to the other changes in regulations and law, the reorganization of different units, and in this sense, you've shared with us in your talk and the questions, really a commitment by the Joko Widodo government to address this issue for the sake of the Indonesian people and its economy. I appreciate this very much. I understand there are so many challenges in a large country like Indonesia, and we all, I think, wish you and Indonesia well. I think in many ways, you seem more optimistic now than you have been before. So I want to ask you to join me in thanking Pak Arief for his keynote address. Please, thank you.